You've been covering it on your show. There is an economic Hunger Games going on. So Biden, the Democrats, the media could throw out the job numbers. They could throw out GDP. They could say, hey, things are coming back. Yeah, maybe for them, not for workers and not for people who literally are facing homelessness because gentrification and housing is going up 20 to 30%. So there is a tenants' rights, tenant unions movement happening all over the country. I've covered it. You've covered it. And in Kansas City is really, really active. The Kansas City Tenants Union. We're going to bring on our guest in a minute, but I want to show you a clip. They're not fucking around. This is a clip of them disrupting. I think it was like a theater performance or something. Let's take a look at this. I think it was a performance of a sister act, if I have that right. Joining me now, Patricia, from your car. I hope you're not driving. You are a member of the Kansas City Tenants Union, and I think as we speak, there's something going on locally with you guys fighting an ordinance that is supposedly supposed to help affordable housing, but is not. Tell us what you've been up against and what is the ordinance that just passed.
Yeah, so thank you for having me on. My name is Patricia. I'm a leader with KC Tenants. My voice is a little gone because of last night, and then I was just at City Hall right now, which is why I'm in my car. The Mayor Quentin Lucas, who ran on a platform where he spoke often about his experience being houseless growing up. You know, he grew up in a co-op, pretends to know what social housing is, or he pretends to not know what it is. He just introduced, last week, he introduced 2 ordinances to city council. One of them essentially limiting how people are able to be involved in the process of incentives being given to developers, building housing in the city, which is obviously a huge problem. It's undemocratic. It's an attack directly on like organizers because we've shut developments down. So the city does not like it when we do that. So they're directly trying to attack our organizing, right? The other ordinance, which is the one that did get passed to full council tomorrow, just now about 30 minutes ago, huge disappointment because we had 75 leaders show up in city council. Many of them gave testimony saying this will directly impact my ability to stay in my city because the city keeps saying they want to build affordable housing and give money to affordable projects, but they don't want to reckon with the fact that affordability in Kansas City right now is determined by homeowner and renter income from the 13 counties surrounding Kansas City, so the entire Kansas City metro area. And the average AMI that determines affordability right now, I think, is like $88,000 a year, whereas renters in Kansas City only make about $33,000 a year on average. So you can understand why affordability right now is not only unrealistic, but it's very unjust and not focused on the people who actually need it most.
And can you kind of talk about, because even before the pandemic, housing was going up all over the place. I mean, gentrification, I just call it economic terrorism because that's what it is. I mean, I went to Seattle a couple years ago, which is just homelessness is out of control. Rent had gone up 70% in 5 years. Thank you, Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Tell me about what has been going on in Kansas City before the pandemic and during the pandemic and now, as far as rent going up. Have they been trying to push people out of their units? Tell me about what's been going on there.
That's a great question. It's also hard. That's a big question too. It's hard to summarize it, but there's a lot of things in Kansas City that have been going on pre-pandemic and then during, and we are still in the pandemic, so I'll just leave it at during. But before the pandemic, the Royals won I almost said the World Cup, but it's the World Series. We have the Chiefs here, like they won. Oh my gosh, I need to stop pretending to know anything about sports. We have popular sports teams. We have a pretty thriving like cultural community, which is built on the back of Black people. Like when people think of Kansas City, they think of barbecue, they think of jazz. A lot of like sports and stuff like that is definitely like co-opted Black culture that is then used to like build social capital for Kansas City to be cool and hip. We end up on lists that are like the top 10 like most affordable places to live because of course people living in New York, LA, Seattle, and Austin look at Kansas City prices and they're like, yeah, it absolutely is affordable. So when people move here with that expectation, it definitely lays the ground for people who have lived here and live here now to be pushed out and priced out by that type of culture around housing and people just like being willing to do anything to get a good deal, and developers like building a lot of buildings that are not catered to like poor and working class people. It's a huge problem. Kansas City just won the bid to host a couple of the World Cup games. There's like talk about, like a women's soccer stadium being built in the riverfront area of the city. So it's all just based on the city trying to like push for its most like social, developments that will make the city cool and trendy and keep growing without thinking about how it affects the people who have lived here for generations. So we're really feeling it right now. I've lived here for 20 years, and out of those 10 years, I have lived on my own outside of my parents' house for 10 years, and I have never been able to stay in one single apartment for more than 1 year because of rising rent costs. And if that keeps going, I won't be able to live in the city I call home,
Wow.
which is really hard. So and a lot of my friends, have been priced out. A lot of the people in my community have already gone through that. So it's not that it will happen. It is happening. It's just like how close are you to the firing line, right?
You want to jump in, Kim?
Absolutely. Patricia, hello. My name is Kim. It's nice to see you. And I've been following the work of KC Tenants for some times. You guys are an active radical organization, and I appreciate the way that you all will show up at meetings and read these elected officials down. It is a wonderful sight to see. I had the opportunity, I actually used to live in Kansas City for a short amount of time, and I can totally empathize with what you're saying about the rents, because I didn't even qualify for an apartment despite having like a salaried position, and I actually had to stay for about 6 weeks. Are you familiar with Grandview, kind of on the south side of the city? There's a little like hotel there that is very sketchy, and I had to I had to live there because because obviously the rents are so exorbitant. But I wasn't alone there, right? There's a lot of people who are finding themselves in perhaps extended stay hotels, or even worse, perhaps sleeping in their vehicles or couch surfing, and the amount of revitalization, I suppose, of the downtown area of Kansas City was something that I saw starting to happen about several years ago. But as you know, it's a very segregated area. I'm curious, for Black homeowners and for non-white homeowners, are they starting to see their neighborhoods be encroached upon with gentrification? Are people being forced, as you said, from their generational homes? And the tactics in which the city and county are using to get people out of their homes and their neighborhoods. In places I've seen it, like they have hiked up like the water bills to make them unsustainable. They've hiked up property taxes to force people out. Are we seeing those same tactics being deployed against longtime Kansas Cityans?
That's a great question. I'm actually, in terms of like utilities specifically, going up. I mean, they are going up. I don't have the like specific background in that realm of things to like say that it's been. I mean, it's never not strategic. But I don't know if I can speak to that specifically to like that contributing to like homeowners being pushed out. But we're talking about an ecosystem where it's like none of these things are they're all privatized. Like in the last couple of years, Evergy has taken over Kansas City and has done some really evil shit in our city in terms of providing energy and essentially people having to live at the whims of like what that company wants and what it needs. So it's like, I may not know, you know, the more formal aspects of how that stuff moves, but I've felt it myself. I know people around me do as well. Homeowners, especially Black homeowners in the east side of the city, have definitely felt the, you know, the repercussions of everything we're talking about, because as properties increase in value, property taxes do as well. People, you know, are either faced with the option of like, do they stay in a home that maybe is not as well maintained because of life in general, and somebody comes in with a sweet deal, you know, some house flipper comes in and offers you a lot of money up front and it seems desirable. Definitely don't want to blame the people who are faced with that type of decision because of, you know, like I get it. It would be, I understand why people sell their homes when the opportunity comes and you're just kind of stuck between that and a house that you just can't maintain and pay for anymore. But it is a huge happening in Kansas City. Like east side of the city, all houses I feel like are becoming, all neighborhoods are very slowly becoming very desirable as the spread grows. You know, reverse white flight is happening in Kansas City very rapidly. So people keep moving back into the city, and the people who have lived here in the inner city are being pushed out, whether they're renters or not. Yeah.
And, you know, what I find interesting is most people focus on DC and Congress, which is very corrupt. But I have seen through reporting on the ground, most city councils and mayors are just as corrupt. You mentioned your mayor ran, you know, talking the talk on affordable housing and this and that, maybe had some progressives tones, but seems to me, whether it's Kansas City or other places, real estate developers are giving mayors and city councils a whole lot of money. And in exchange, it seems the mayor and the city councils are giving them the keys to the kingdom. Could you kind of talk about local politics there? Does it seem like the mayor and city council are genuine at all about, you know, avoiding some of the worst of this? Or are they just giving lip service to tenants unions and struggling people?
You know, there's definitely a spectrum. Like, I don't think that, you know, there's a spectrum of like how people move in city council and for what reasons. I don't think there's like one single person who I'm like, they're like the absolute best person and they always do the right thing. I think it's always like situation by situation, is usually how we assess like how people are moving. I'm definitely in my personal capacity. I'm a permanent resident, so I can't vote. So the way that I assess like elected officials, I think is really different than other people because I can only show up at City Hall in the chambers and testify in this way. I can't actually like vote people in and vote other people in when I want people out. But yeah, I mean, a lot of lip service, especially Mayor Quentin Lucas, like his platform, he committed to being like the housing mayor, and he loves to boast about all the units that have been built. Like on Twitter, just go to his Twitter and he's always like, these are the amount of units that are affordable that have been built under my watch. Like he loves to brag, but as soon as you confront him about the fact that like the affordable units you're mentioning, like who are they actually affordable to? Like what you're saying, Kim, is like a lot of people with full-time jobs. I had a full-time job at an arts college here, the college I graduated from. I had a full-time job with benefits, could not afford to live by myself. So it just isn't, I think politicians are so quick to say like, this is on paper affordable, like this is the way things have been, and they're just willing to run with that rather than literally 30 minutes ago in the council chambers, we had leaders testifying and saying like the definition of affordability in Kansas City needs to change because as it stands, it is not actually affordable. And we had Councilman Dan Fowler from the 2nd District in Kansas City. His response was, developers are supposed to make money. Like, are we supposed to stop people from making money? He literally said that out loud. He was like, would you show up and do your job if you weren't getting paid? And it's like, we shouldn't have to fucking handhold politicians and tell them making money and exploiting people's lives is not the same thing. So yeah, yeah.
Patricia, let me ask you a question really quickly, because, we all know that you can very easily tell a city, state, national government's priorities by what they spend their money on. So when it comes to the city of Kansas City, relative to other things, how much money, and when I say other things specifically, I do mean the police budget. When I'm talking about how much they spend on police, how much do they spend on affordable housing versus how much is spent on police and other things?
Absolutely. I am not going to quote numbers because I'm not good at remembering numbers, if you haven't already noticed. But the mayor in 2020, with the civil uprisings, like, people were saying, like, we need to invest in our communities and not in policing them. I am personally an abolitionist. Like, I believe that money and effort, like, we can make our communities better if we're not investing money in police forces. So I like fully stand behind that. And in 2020, the mayor and city council in general, like, it was pretty split in half because there are some pretty, like, pro-police people on council. But for the most part, the sentiment was like, you're right. Like, the people are saying there needs to be a change in how we prioritize things, because budgets are, like, they show the morals of the people building the budgets and, like, what they are willing to invest in financially. And it seemed like things were kind of we were turning the tide with the people in charge. And this past year, the proposed budget gave an additional, I don't know how many millions of dollars to the police budget. And I mean, it's kind of a slap in the face, right? For people who
$269 million. $269 million they proposed.
Thank you. It is a ridiculous amount of money. And when you compare and I'm not saying, like, any amount of money going to police is right, but when you compare the Kansas City police budget to, like, New York's, and compare the size of the city, just the actual, like, resources that are required, it is an outrageous amount of money. The amount of co-ops and social housing projects that could be built with that money we wouldn't even have to think about how are we paying for this if we literally spent a percentage of what's going to police on housing. And I'm not talking about the mayor's definition of affordable housing. I'm talking about actual social housing.
Last question. Can you kind of talk about, because I think, I don't know if you're living online at all, but there's a lot of lefties who are losing hope these days. But I'm saying, hey, things are happening. You got the unions and people trying to unionize successfully, Starbucks, Amazon, Trader Joe's, etc. You got workers on strike, and you have tenants unions popping up. Can you kind of talk about your experience with the tenants union and also what have been some of the wins? Maybe they're not huge, but tenants unions are scoring some victories. And how could people get involved?
Totally. Yes, I'm familiar with the feeling of, everything's going to shit, because I feel that all the time. The reason I find myself waking up every day ready to get shit done is because of the people I'm organizing with. KC Tenants is not only an incredible organization at building power, but our work is relational, and it is just, like, the most incredible group of people I have ever worked with. And our work is essential. It's vital for our work for us to, like, build strong relationships with each other. So it's not just, like, me coming and organizing with some, like, activist group. It's like, this is my family. These are the people who I want to live next to for the rest of my life. And I want to, like, ensure that they're able to. So I would say, if people are losing hope, I would first say, I hear you, and likely there's reason for it. Like, I really do feel that every day. The second thing I would say is organize. Like, if there isn't a tenant union in your city, in your neighborhood, start one. Like, hit up KC Tenants if you've got questions. Like, hit up other unions around. If it's not a tenant union and you want to start an artist union, if you want to start any sort of union, like, start gathering resources and talk to people and figure out what works for the people in your city and your neighborhoods.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.